This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
A man with the fire burning deep inside, seeking truth with every step he takes, investigates the mysterious secrets to unfold. Dr. Len Horowitz, his name resonates. His brain ablaze with knowledge and insight. He dives into the depths, unafraid of what he'll find. An investigative journalist with a passion for truth. He shines a light on the dark corners of his mind. With his brain on fire, he uncovers the lies. Dr. Len Horowitz, the seeker of truth. Through the shadows he walks, shedding light on the world. His voice, a beacon guiding us through.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Thursday, the 25th September. The purpose of today is to inventory everything: food, ammunition, spare parts, tools, clothes, boots, socks, everything. You'll be surprised at what you got. You might be surprised at what you don't have. Yes, we do a patient way in green, my friend Dr. Len Horowitz, and I do refer to him as a man with his brain on fire. The author of 25 books, 26, well, who's counting? A bunch. A whole bunch of websites. I'll give this entire list to begin with, and we'll go from there. But here we are of websites. The most recent one, unless something newer has come up, warnwethepeople.net. Next, I like to listen to this great background music, 528radio.com. Great music to listen to while you're doing anything, quite frankly. Then we have judicialcorruptionnews.com. Next, a place I do some shopping myself, healthyworldstore.com. Then we have revolutiontelevision.net. And last but not least, medicalveritas.org. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning, John. Great to be with you again.
Good to be with you. Well, I shipped your new 528 energy cleaner yesterday, and you should get it in a few days, along with a micro plush throw to go with it. And you can begin your own testing, can't you, sir?
That's exactly what I'm going to do with it, and I'm really looking forward to it. You know, we have a great new app website up. 520therapy.com is the new website. That's brand new. And it gives you, as a person who wants to relieve pain or simply test out the 520 frequency on whatever illness that you have, 528therapy.com has two audio tracks. One is a binaural, which has 417 hertz frequency in one ear and 528 in the other. So that's called a binaural, and that is two extraordinary resonant energies from silver and gold. 528 has been found to be the plasmonic energy of pure 24 karat gold. And silver has been shown to be 417 hertz frequency. So you combine silver and gold, which is what the ancient pyramids, their capstones were laminated with silver and gold for the purpose of maintaining the physical status of the various bodies that were in it. In the king's chamber, for example, you had the sarcophagi, and the concept was that this is going to maintain the physical body of the rulers of Egypt. And then at the same time, the theory at the time, which is very consistent now with my research from 1998 in back of me, you can actually see, if you get the video, the Healing Codes for the Biological Apocalypse book, which revealed the original musical scale. For the first time in about 1,500, 1,600 years, it was secreted. And the miracle note in that original solfeggio musical scale was 528. But 417, it turns out, is the silver frequency, and that is associated with the resonant energy of spirituality. Fundamentally, you have the ancient Egyptian rulers, they painted the capstones with the silver resonant energy because that was also associated with communing divinely, and that it would maintain the energy and connection, communion of the soul and spirit with the Creator. So that's like ancient history, and that it's now being actually applied in 528 Therapies, which is talked about and explained on 528therapy.com. Along with that, with the audio tracks that you can select either 528 straight frequency to hear it. You can hear it, it's audible. And then the binaural 417 and 528, that is also audible, and it's adjacent to a color swatch of 528 nanometers, greenish yellow, which is it's the color of a baby leaf growing in springtime, or a little bit more mature than that. And you get this resonant energy then of what I actually thought you were going to ask me about today, which is Kennedy and the National Institutes of Health revision of their considerations of the thimerosal and mercury and the issues that are in acetaminophen that are supposedly now, we're told, associated with the autistic spectrum disorders, which I'd like to talk about.
Well, let's do that. Let's jump right in there, Doctor.
Yeah,
Please.
and actually, we've already started now, John, because it's very related to 528. Okay, so let me summarize the Kennedy Maha Bhattacharya et al. Administration has basically concluded, based on 40 some odd studies. And I'm scheduled to give a presentation both in Japan as well as a organization that represents the parents of autistic children, because it's a terrible mess. And of course, there's some controversy. Some of the pharmaceutical companies don't like to hear that Tylenol, for example, acetaminophen, is causing these problems. And the pathogenic process by which that happens is intimately related to 528 frequency, because I feel that it's very related to the healing of the therapeutic requirements that autistic spectrum and other illnesses are associated with. Here's how it happens, that according to the administration, you have acetaminophen, which acts as a damaging agent for the antioxidant glutathione. Now, glutathione is the human being's key immune agent. It's an agent that actually detoxifies the body. But what its relationship to 528 is extraordinary. You see, when I talked about the color of the baby leaf budding in springtime, you have 528 is the heart of the rainbow. It's the heart of sunshine. It's the heart of the electromagnetic color spectrum. And it's the reason we're alive, because antioxidants means that you have the presence of an oxygen electron. The oxygen that we're living off of. Now, again, go back to the Bible. A lot of this has to do, virtually everything has to do with spirituality in the Bible. You see, God breathed the breath of life into Adam and Eve to get them off the ground. So today, oxygen is the most number one, along with hydration, therapy that's given to people with all sorts of illnesses. You know, in Africa, when people developed Ebola and had this terrible infectious disease, you had good hydration and oxygenation, which competed against the virus, killed the virus. HIV, AIDS, and COVID, the viruses, they don't do well in oxygen or in sunlight. Sunlight, at the heart of it, is this 528 frequency, greenish yellow color that, of course, the chlorophyll is what's generating the oxygen. And so obviously the oxygen we're breathing literally lifts us up spiritually, energetically, as well as physically in that specific frequency, 528 green. And so that's the color of life. So now consider the fact that you have glutathione, which is your main antioxidant. What does that mean? An antioxidant, it sounds like, it's a little difficult for most people who are not involved in science to wrap your head around something that's called an antioxidant when it says it's antioxidant. No, it's actually the opposite. An antioxidant contributes a negatively charged electron. And that electron is resonating specifically in 528 frequency. In oxygen, as now I've explained. Why? Because of the sunlight, because of the heart of the rainbow, that's the 528 frequency. And now that energy, that negatively charged electron, all electrons are energy carriers. So let's say you're diseased, you're sick, you're got an inflammatory reaction that now the Trump administration and the health officials have said that this is the principal cause of autistic spectrum, is you have an inflammatory reaction going on in the brain following taking the acetaminophen and having some sort of other immune challenge, such as vaccinations. And what troubles me greatly, John, you and I have been exposing the negligence and recklessness and omissions and misrepresentations by government officials and the pharmaceutical cartel. I've already decided for the last 6 years, we've talked about how we can't trust them.
Right.
Likewise, in this instance, if you really start to research all what's been promoted and hyped about the new Kennedy administration and MAHA and this revelation concerning acetaminophen, Tylenol, you have gross, reckless neglect of telling people about vaccination toxicity, and specifically mercury. John, it turns out that the same exact mechanism by which the acetaminophen Tylenol causes the inflammatory reactions in the brain is the same exact mechanism that mercury causes. The same methylmercury, mercury toxicity is caused by the same pathogenic process. So the mainstream media, as well as the Kennedy administration, unfortunately, they have not stated anything about mercury in the vaccinations or the vaccines primarily. It's not primarily Tylenol taken by pregnant women, no, or given to babies or given to, women around the time of birth. No, it's the fact that you've injected mercury, which turns into methylmercury, one of the most toxic substances on planet Earth. I am told that as a state and you've got that as a main problem that's causing this autistic spectrum disorder, as well as the acetaminophen. If we want to have a Trump administration, full faith and trust in the Trump administration, as well as in the new National Institutes of Health, you've got to really tell the truth, the whole truth. Omissions in law is fraud. When you omit something to cover up, in this case, the pharmaceutical cartel's liability for causing generations of autistic spectrum disorders and the terrible damage that it's caused to families and even the economy, you've got to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And so it's not primarily Tylenol. And of course, the drug cartels are happy. Where is Tylenol mostly produced? Mostly produced overseas. China and India are the main producers. And of course, Pfizer's got its hands in it, GlaxoSmithKline, the main movers and shakers in poisoning people with vaccinations, are basically saying, oh no, it's not Tylenol, it's not really, this is, superficial science. Hogwash. They are diverting. So in my opinion, I have to conclude substantially what we have been told currently is a red herring. It's a diversion off of the truth, the whole truth, which is that the mercury in the vaccinations, coupled with the injection of foreign proteins from the various sources that are associated with the various viruses and bacteria that they're injecting us, supposedly in defense against these diseases. Proteins injected into the human body basically cause autoimmune diseases. The entire list, about 100 different new vaccine era autoimmune diseases have come about because of the injection, not just of the mercury, which they lied about. Everything they've told us has been a gross lie. Mercury is one of the ones. They said that the hepatitis B vaccines no longer had mercury. Just like they're telling us, that there's no graphene in the COVID vaccinations. That's a lie. Just like they lied about the mercury not being in the vaccines any longer. Well, Kennedy just a couple months ago said, okay, we're no longer to have mercury in the hepatitis B vaccine, which, by the way, was the vaccine that caused AIDS, that brought AIDS to the world.
Right.
And so COVID, I've talked on your program many times about the COVID virus having the spike protein, gain of function, bioweapon, antigen, being about 62% directly from HIV. The attachment apparatus of COVID is basically based on the patents from HIV/AIDS that Fauci and his cohorts in crime actually patented and make money off of, even currently. So going back now, this is what they have done with the autistic spectrum disorder issues and the acetaminophen. Do you have any questions about this, John?
Well, just a comment. I believe the press conference that took place earlier this week was the opening salvo of what will expand to include the vaccines causing autism. There were several hints at that. They mentioned the Amish children have no autism and get no vaccines. And I think they're going to do it incrementally to reduce the shocks that would be inevitable on the stock market, on the economy in general, to spread out the what will be inevitable fear and dismay people have when they find out, with no doubt whatsoever, that none of these vaccines are safe and effective. Not a single childhood vaccine has been safety tested. That's all coming out incrementally, I think, over the next few months. What do you think, sir?
Yeah, John, I've thought the same thing, and I think that's a reasonable consideration and conclusion, but I don't think it's righteous. And I think it continues the fraud and the crime. I love President Trump going to the United Nations yesterday and unfortunately witnessing, 3 different attacks, from the elevator suddenly stopping the moment he gets on.
Right.
I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, but he really laid it out that the United Nations is untrustworthy. It's been basically doing what it's not supposed to be doing. It's really actually been backing the wars. And the metaphor is the same in the pharmaceutical cartel. Everything that they do, because of the origin of big pharma, is in IG Farben, the Germany's leading petrochemical pharmaceutical cartel, which was intimately partnered with the Rockefeller Standard Oil Company, so that the origin of what we currently have giving us television advertisements, telling us if we take these drugs, we're going to get all these diseases. It starts with the Nazis.
It does.
So let me read to you what was the conclusion, the definitive, outstanding literature review on this topic. It came out 11 years ago about mercury and about how the glutathione is associated with the same mechanism that mercury as well as the acetaminophen causes. So here's a quote. It is conceivable that this general mechanism can explain mercury-induced oxidative stress, not only through a continuous depletion of the reduced glutathione pool, but also by interfering with enzymes operating through active sites based on vicinal thiol groups, end quote. Thiol group is a sulfur oxygen hydrogen combination. Thiol is similar to alcohol, but instead of the carbon, where carbon chemistry with oxygen and hydrogen, it's what's called the hydroxyl group that carries the negative charge. This is all about energy. So this is why I'm saying, when we're talking about the energy cleaner, when we're talking about restoring the energy, the normal energy of 528, as you're doing now with the energy cleaner, when you're talking about adding that back into the body, you're talking about curing the imbalance that is associated with reduced glutathione. So that's exactly what they're saying that Tylenol, acetaminophen does to the children and the infants. You're dealing with the same exact bioenergetic, bioelectronic level, or a biospiritual level, energy, spirit. So this is 11 years ago. This was the conclusions published by researchers in the most credible journals that concludes that this is the mechanism by which the mercury toxicity causes the variety of illnesses associated with the reduction of electrons, negatively charged electrons. An additional thing to think about, I mentioned the fact that the autoimmune diseases have come about because of the poisoning, the injection of the foreign proteins from bacteria, virus, yeast, chicken embryos, bovine fetal serum. All of these proteins come from these various sources in the various vaccinations. And when they're injected into the human body, they attach to your body parts. And then that is a foreign body that the body recognizes as foreign. In science, it's called an antigenic complex that causes more inflammation. This is the exact process that the Kennedy administration here is saying is associated with acetaminophen poisoning. So now that you've got that, that's inflammatory reactions. And when it happens in the brain, it causes encephalitis. And this is exactly what they're talking about with the reduction of glutathione. The main body antioxidant is being heavily depleted by these injections and these poisonings. Now, bringing in this concept of 528 therapeutics, if we understand that 528 is the key, just like glutathione is the key immune booster on a physical chemistry, biological level, but on a spiritual energetic level, we now have a similar understanding, because now there's been independent, that means not me, I didn't do it, they didn't even mention me, but there's at least 2, if not 3 or more sets of researchers from universities internationally that have taken just the 528 frequency, and they have played that frequency to people or to cell cultures or to animals. And what they found, that there is, in one study at University of Tehran, there was a 100% increase in antioxidant activity and significant nerve protection.
Doctor, I want to do a segue here for just a bit. I ran across an article that documents a Babylonian cuneiform tablet found about a century ago. It's been gone over by AI to discover the following that we didn't know, that the Babylonians had a more advanced and precise mathematical framework than we possess today. This is a piece of artifact more than 3,000 years old. And I found that a bit shocking. How about you, Doctor?
Actually, I don't find it shocking at all, John, because it's consistent with what we published starting in 1998. So think about that. There's, what's this, 28 years ago.
Right.
We came out with the original musical scale and then said that this is related to what is called the musical mathematical matrix of universal construction, divine design. So Originally, the Bible, the Old Testament Torah, was all math. It was all math. It was all sung. So ideally, if we're to commune optimally with God, we would be singing to each other mathematics, simply
Right.
numbers.
Right.
Now look at how simple computers work, either 1 or 0. It's all computer language today on a micro scale. But basically, it's not surprising at all. In fact, what my recommendation is for the Department of Education in the revisions that are taking place right now internationally, or nationally certainly, is that we go back to understand what math really is. Ancient Pythagorean mystery school mathematics should be taught before the children receive current mathematics, where they're talking about 1 and 1 is 2, and 2 and 2 is 4, multiplication, division, calculus, algebra. Before they get any of that, they should be taught exactly what you just said, that the original mathematics was the way that the universe operates, the way that God's language speaks to us through musical mathematics. This is why, segueing back to 528 and the energy cleaners and the 528 therapy patches, we're going back to understand God's technology for creation. The miracle note is 528. The miracle frequency is 528 in the original musical scale that was secreted about 1,500 years ago. I'm going to refer everybody listening that's interested. If you're sincerely interested as a researcher on the topic of 528, dealing with acetaminophen, Tylenol, glutathione challenges, and the inflammatory reactions in the brain. If you go to what John had mentioned, which is medicalveritas.org, I'm the editor-in-chief of Medical Veritas International, Inc. The online journal is medicalveritas.org. If you go there right now and you click on the upper menu, it says Bioenergy and Frequency Therapies. Click on the submenu that says 528 frequency in medicine. There you're going to see another submenu that has a number of excellent articles, one of which deals exactly with the subject matter today. It's titled The Effects of 528 Hertz Sound Waves to Reduce Cell Death in Human Astrocyte Primary Cell Cultures Treated with Ethanol. This was a study done at the University of Tehran by outstanding researchers who didn't credit me for the fact that they got 528 intelligence from me. They then took on this project. They basically played 528 sound directly to the cell cultures and then examined what happened. As a result, they found that there was a 100% increase in antioxidant activity. That's what glutathione does. It's a principal antioxidant. So here you have 528 played to nerve cell cultures, that's astrocytes, nerve cells in the brain, for example, and you have 100% increase in boosting immunity against alcohol degeneration.
That is nearly the same pathogenic process caused by mercury toxicity, largely responsible for autism.
So basically, you could say, well, if you're a chronic alcoholic, it would be wise for you to sleep on the energy cleaner or use the 528 Therapatches or the technology or listen to the 528
radio.com or the soundtracks on 528therapy.com.
It's free on 528therapy.com
and healthyworldstore.com.
528therapy.com has the free audio. You can actually listen to this and get the benefits. You can then fill your screen with the green 528 color swatch. And researchers internationally, clinics internationally now have been doing exactly what I'm telling you. You fill the screen with green, that 528 green, and that radiates your body just like sunshine, boosting vitamin D levels and then basically curing diseases. Look at what happens with infantile jaundice. You know, you take a jaundiced
Newborn, depleted of vitamin K and perhaps D also.
and you put it out in sunshine, and suddenly now their liver starts to work, because that's essentially the same mechanism as the vitamin D production from sunshine. So you have the understanding now that spirit controls physical operations.
Spirit is energy, and energy is all negatively charged electrons vibrating at certain frequencies, the most healing of which is 528.
Now, think about this. That same study showed that the oxygen that's generated from 528, the antioxidant activity that increases 100%, is also associated with protecting the brain and the nerve cells from alcohol toxicity. Now, that's important. I mentioned the fact that everybody that's got an autistic child should put their children, let them sleep at night on an energy cleaner. Why? Because think about what the fundamental mechanism of how the glutathione depletion in the autistic children caused by mercury toxicity and acetaminophen. Think about the reduction is basically the same mechanism of alcohol. The thiol groups I mentioned is a sulfur replacing a carbon on the hydroxyl radical. In essence, you have a similar chemistry even. It's very similar of what's taking place. The depletion of the energy from the toxicity is the same with alcohol toxicity or acetaminophen toxicity.
Or mercury toxicity.
It's the same mechanism. The answer is simple. It's very simple. It's all musical mathematics. That's God's language. God is producing these changes in our body. Now you then go into this whole concept of this, renaissance that we're having, the revival that we're having now. And you have this understanding that how God works is spiritually, energetically through frequencies. Frequency. So musical mathematics, it's the structure. The Holy Spirit, in my opinion, my conclusion, if you read the book of 528, it's one of my books, the book of 528, Prosperity Key of Love. It's the key of the house of David. It literally goes into Old Testament prophecy from Isaiah 22:22 and Revelation 3:6-8. It talks about how in the end times, we're going to have extraordinarily important revelation that is the key of the house of David, that opens doors that no man can open because they're spiritual portals. They're God's administrative mechanisms. The key of the house of David opens doors that no man can open, closes doors that no man can close. Research it. Look at the Bible. Those spiritual portals is what we're needing right now. We've talked about needing a miracle to get us out of the mess that we're in economically and in terms of the environment and the pollution and the sickness and the degeneration of our health. Well, the miracle is right before us. The miracle is 528 frequency. That's the miracle note of the original musical scale, for goodness sake. It's right in front of our faces. What frequency is it? It's the frequency of 528, oxygen. Oxygen resonating in, I call it love 528. It's love. It's pure tone love. Love is the universal healer. Wow. How does that happen? Miraculously. Why are we so engaged our entire lives of seeking love, seeking a relationship with somebody else, a significant other, as well as God? We are seeking that with our hearts. Our hearts need that. That's our primary food of life, of sustenance. It's spiritual. It's energetic. And so this is where we're at right now. So this is going back to understanding how simple it is, because mathematics fundamentally is really simple. However, you take somebody like Nikola Tesla, you got Elon Musk naming his company based on last century's greatest genius was not Einstein. It was Tesla, who got free energy from the air, the ambient energy, because the entire universe is administered musically, mathematically, the energy universally for universal construction, including reconstruction of your own body for healing from the Holy Spirit power of love energy coming into your body by grace, suddenly taken up by the energy receiver and antenna to God called DNA. That's what your DNA is. It's an antenna to this miraculous manifestation and healing system that God has created for us. This is how come you go to sleep tired and depressed after a long day's hard work, and you wake up in the morning suddenly refreshed. You ask, how did that happen? The restoration happened because all night long you've been blessed with this 528 frequency love, healing energy by grace. God loves you. God loves us. We have a relationship with God if we have faith, and that opens up this power of love that can do the restoration. Now, think about putting your autistic child on that energy cleaner all night long, having them vibrating not only in love 528 by the grace of God, but actually now using this understanding, this technology to basically accommodate and complement how God operates in a prayer. I always tell people, for example, when you take OxySilver, read all the reviews of OxySilver. It's extraordinary. And it took me years of understanding how the heck does it happen that somebody can take OxySilver and cure all these other diseases. I developed OxySilver based on NASA science research based as an antibiotic. But now you're getting miraculous healing of all other diseases. Now, how did that happen? It's happening because, again, God works simply. Simple. It's simple. It's mathematics. It's musical math, actually, harmonics. You're either vibrating in harmony with God, in concert with God. Look at the best bands. They're in concert. They vibe together. They're in divine communion. The best vocalists, when they sing, ask them. Their whole movement of oxygen, air through the lungs, the vocal cords produces these beautiful sounds. The best artists, recording artists, are actually singing to God and or divinely communing with God. The same thing with a great band. They're in sync. They're in concert together, communing together in the vibration, the good vibration, in this particular case of 528, love. And so this is the miraculous healing. It is the key of the house of David that opens doors that we have not seen in the human race. And that's the magnificent time in which we're currently living, the time of revelation and revival and recovery. And that this is what's necessary. This is why me, the king of impatience, is not happy by the Trump administration, the Maha administration with Kennedy saying, oh, it's Tylenol. Oh, no, garbage. It's way beyond Tylenol as determined by the scientific database that has been out there for at least 11, 12 years already. Anyway, there you go, John.
All right. Well said, Doctor.